All right, let's get right into it. When we think of penetration testing, it's so easy to picture some hacker in a hoodie just hammering away at a keyboard in the dark. But the reality of a professional engagement, it's the total opposite. It's a highly structured, super methodical, and disciplined process. Really, it's less about a spontaneous spark of genius and way more about a repeatable professional playbook. And today, we are breaking that playbook down piece by piece.
So here's the game plan. We're going to walk through the entire life cycle of a real-deal pen test, starting with the absolute bedrock, pre-engagement. From there, we'll get into the intel gathering that builds the attack plan, then move to the actual precise act of exploitation. After that, we'll see how testers show the real business impact through post-exploitation. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the most important takeaways.
So, let's kick things off with the 30,000-foot view. A professional pen test isn't just a single event. It's a full life cycle, a journey with clear, distinct phases where each step builds on the one before it.
And this is the very backbone of that journey. Pretty much every professional security assessment you'll ever see follows this fundamental sequence. You start by setting the rules in pre-engagement, then you move to understanding the target, finding the weak spots, actually exploiting them, and then, this is the fun part, showing just how far an attacker could really go. Every single step here is essential.
Okay, so let's zoom in on our first, and you could argue, our most critical phase, pre-engagement. This is where all the legal and strategic groundwork gets laid. To be blunt, this phase is what separates a professional, ethical hacker from a flat-out criminal.
And this is exactly why it's so important. I mean, this quote just nails it. Without explicit written permission and super clearly defined rules, what you're doing isn't a pen test, it's illegal. The pre-engagement phase is what creates the legal safe harbor for the entire operation. It's your get-out-of-jail-free card.
And what's really cool here is how these three documents create a complete legal and operational shield. First up, you've got the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, which basically says what happens here stays here. Next, the scope of work, or SOW. This draws a big, clear box around what's in play and what's off limits. And finally, the rules of engagement, the ROE. This one defines the how, the specific methods you can use, the timing, and maybe most importantly, who you call if something goes sideways.
So who can actually greenlight this whole thing? Well, it has to be someone with the proper authority. Just imagine a disgruntled employee trying to hire you to test their company's network, right? Without confirming that signatory authority with a C-level exec or senior IT leadership, you could land yourself in a world of legal trouble. This has to be sorted out right at the very beginning.
All right, once all the paperwork is signed, sealed, and delivered, we get to move into the brains of the operation, intelligence and analysis. You got to think of this like a military campaign. You don't just charge headfirst in the battle, no way. You do reconnaissance, you analyze the terrain, and you build a detailed attack plan.
Often, the very first step is open source intelligence, or OSINT, and let me tell you, you would be absolutely amazed at what companies and their employees share publicly without even thinking about it. We're talking about finding passwords, API keys, even SSH keys accidentally committed to a public GitHub repository. This stuff can sometimes give a tester an immediate way in before they've even run a single scan.
Next up is enumeration. This is where we go from passive intelligence gathering to actively, knocking on the digital doors. The goal is to create a super detailed map of their digital world. What servers are online, what ports are open, and what services are actually running on those ports. This is what defines the attack surface we'll be working with.
Now, this is a really, really crucial distinction to make. Information gathering is all about finding the what. For instance, hey, I see port 2121 is open. But vulnerability assessment, that's where the real magic happens. It asks, so what? It's the difference between saying, okay, port 2121 is open, and saying, that probably means there's a hidden FTP server there. What kind of security risk does that represent? This is the step where raw data gets turned into actual actionable intelligence.
And all that intelligence leads us right here to the exploitation phase. Now listen, this is not about throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. Nope. Based on all the research we just did, this is a precise, calculated, surgical strike aimed at one specific, identified weakness. Professionals don't just grab the first exploit they find on the internet. They have to prioritize. It's a constant balancing act. They're weighing the probability of success against how complex the attack is, and, most importantly, the risk of causing collateral damage. The perfect exploit, the one they're always looking for, is the one that's got a high chance of success, is low complexity, and has almost zero risk of disrupting the client's business.
So what happens when you face that dilemma? You think you found a vulnerability, but exploiting it could crash a mission-critical system. This is where being a professional really comes into play. What do you do?
The answer is so simple, but it's everything. When in doubt, you communicate. You pick up the phone, you present the data to the client, and you let them make an informed decision. Trust me, they will always prefer a 5-minute phone call to discuss the risk over spending hours trying to restore a system you just knocked offline. It's just a core principle of being a pro.
Okay, so you've pulled off a successful exploit. Now what? Well, getting that initial access, that first command shell on a system, that's not the end goal, not even close. It's just a beginning. The next phases, post-exploitation and lateral movement, are all about answering one big question. Now that an attacker is in, what's the real business impact?
So once you're on a compromised machine, you follow another methodical process. First, you'll pillage, hunting for local files with passwords or juicy secrets. Then, you establish persistence, a secret backdoor so you don't lose access. Next, you try to escalate privileges to go from a regular user to an all-powerful administrator. And finally, you test if you can actually sneak sensitive data out of the network.
And this is how testers go deeper into the network. Pivoting is the technique of using the machine you just compromised as a launchpad. It lets you access and scan internal networks that were totally invisible from the outside. Think of it as the gateway to true lateral movement. And why does this all matter? Because the ultimate goal here is to simulate a worst-case scenario. This is exactly how ransomware spreads. An attacker gets a foothold on one single workstation, and then through lateral movement, they pivot through the network until they've compromised literally everything. Showing this attack path is one of the most valuable things a pen test can deliver.
All right, so let's bring this all home and really nail down the key takeaways from this whole professional playbook.
As we've seen, this whole thing is a disciplined end-to-end process. From the legal contracts and pre-engagement all the way to showing a full network compromise through lateral movement, every single phase is logical, it's necessary, and it builds on the last. It's a structured investigation, not just some chaotic attack. And this really gets to the absolute heart of what professional penetration testing is all about. Look, the goal isn't the thrill of getting in. A tester's access is always temporary. The real, lasting value is in finding those vulnerabilities, the permanent weaknesses in the armor, and giving the client a clear roadmap to fix them. It's not about the glory of the breach. It's about the professional duty to help them build a stronger defense and keep everyone else out.